My brothers and sisters of Africa and the world, listen carefully for today. History is not being remembered. It is being written. Burkina Faso, a land that has been underestimated by colonial masters, ignored by international markets, and mocked by global media, has just done the unthinkable. $20 billion worth of cashews. Yes, $20 billion have been sent not to Paris, not to London, not to New York, but to Ethiopia, to a fellow African nation. Let that sink in for a moment. This is not just a shipment. This is not just an economic transaction. This is not just trade. This is a declaration of Pan-African unity in action. This is a slap in the face of every power that ever tried to divide us. For decades, Africa's wealth was exported to fuel empires that gave nothing in return. Our gold, our oil, our diamonds, our cocoa, our people all shipped across oceans while we were left with poverty, corruption, and foreign debt. But today, Burkina Faso has chosen a different road, a road of African brotherhood, a road of intercontinental prosperity, a road of continental respect, and the world. The West is watching, stunned, because for the first time in a long time, Africa is trading with Africa, not as slaves, not as beggars, but as builders, as partners, as sovereign nations with dignity and power. You see, this $20 billion cashew deal is not just about nuts, it's about vision. It's about refusing to let our food feed other nations while our own children go hungry. It is about refusing to let our markets be dictated by someone 5,000 miles away who doesn't even know how to pronounce Ouagadougou. It's about choosing Addis Ababa over Amsterdam, choosing Lusaka over London, choosing each other over everyone who ever tried to break us. So why cashews? Why now? Because Burkina Faso has quietly become a giant in agricultural processing. While the world laughed, mocked, and doubted, Captain Ibrahim's government invested in rural farmers, opened processing plants, and built rail lines connecting the heartland to the ports. And now, the fruits of those seeds are not going to some foreign market controlled by exploitative corporations. They are going to Ethiopia, where African factories will turn African cashews into African-made products, sold across African supermarkets. This is Afro-capitalism. This is economic nationalism. This is what real independence looks like. Make no mistake, this alliance Burkina Faso and Ethiopia is sending shockwaves across the world. It's not just trade, it's trust. It's proof that we do not need Europe's partnerships, we do not need America's aid packages, and we do not need China's loans. What we need is each other, and this deal? This is just the beginning. Imagine a future where Burkina Faso feeds East Africa, where Ethiopia supplies turbines to West Africa, where Ghana powers Niger with electricity, where Kenya exports tech to Chad, and Zimbabwe fuels locomotives in Togo. Imagine a continent where our borders do not divide us, they connect us. This is not fiction. This is not a dream. This is happening right now. And to those who fear this new Africa, to those who have built their fortunes on our division and poverty, be warned. Your time is up. The game is changing. The lion is not sleeping anymore. The train of Pan-African commerce has left the station, and it is being driven by nations once called least developed. Burkina Faso is showing us that we do not have to be big to be bold. We do not have to be rich to be righteous. We only have to be united. So I ask you, where will you stand when history is being written? Will you continue to wait for Western validation? Or will you join this Pan-African movement rising like the Nile, flowing with pride, purpose, and prosperity? The cashew is just a symbol, but what it symbolizes is revolution and Africa. Africa is rising.
Welcome to Talk of Africa 360, your source for insightful news, analysis, and thoughtful commentary. If you value informed perspectives and fact-based reporting, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss an update. Disclaimer: the content on this channel is based on reliable public sources and credible online information. It is intended strictly for educational and analytical purposes. We do not promote or endorse political violence, hate speech, or any form of discrimination. Our goal is to inform, not to inflame. Thanks for being here. Let's stay informed together.
Brothers and sisters of Africa, sons and daughters of the great motherland, today we stand at a turning point. A moment that history will remember, not for its explosions, not for its bloodshed, not for its colonial treaties or foreign interference, but for its transformation. A moment when the soil of West Africa shook hands with the mountains of East Africa. A moment when Burkina Faso, a nation once overlooked and underestimated, made a powerful statement to the entire globe by sending $20 billion worth of cashew exports to Ethiopia. Not for charity, not through a middleman, but through a direct continental alliance. This is more than a trade deal. This is a declaration. This is Africa uniting economically, strategically, and purposefully. This moment represents the beginning of a new reality, one in which Africa no longer looks outward to define itself, no longer waits for Europe to determine value, no longer begs the West for markets. This is a moment where Burkina Faso and Ethiopia have boldly drawn a straight line from farm to factory, from one sovereign nation to another, bypassing colonial trade routes, rejecting exploitative trade conditions, and writing their own script in the Pan-African narrative. Let this moment burn itself into our collective memory, for we are witnessing the future of African cooperation being built, not in words or slogans, but in tons of cashews on hundreds of cargo trucks across thousands of kilometers of African soil, with no need for the euro, the dollar, or any external permission. This, my people, is real independence. This is economic Pan-Africanism in action. And now I ask you, wherever you are listening from, in Lagos and Nairobi, in Accra and Johannesburg, in Kigali and Bamako and Lusaka, or even in the diaspora, will you be a spectator or a participant in this African awakening? Will you clap from the sidelines or stand up and build the bridge that connects our villages to our ports, our markets to our dreams? Because the message here is clear. We don't have to wait for the West to buy our products. We can buy from each other. We can feed each other. We can grow with each other. And what better symbol to anchor this change than the humble cashew? For decades, African farmers have been growing cashews, rich in nutrition, resilient in dry climates, and bursting with export potential. But for too long, the story has been the same. Raw cashews leave African ports to be processed in India, Vietnam, or Europe, then sold back to us at 10 times the price. Our labor, our soil, our time, devalued. Our profit, redirected. Our future, stolen in plain sight. But today, Captain Ibrahim Traoré and Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed have rewritten that story. Burkina Faso has announced the export of $20 billion worth of raw and semi-processed cashews directly to Ethiopia, where state-of-the-art African-run processing plants will complete the value chain. The deal includes not just trade, but technology sharing, agricultural mechanization, local employment, and future food processing collaborations. This isn't just about nuts. This is about reclaiming control over the African economy. It's about saying, we don't just grow it. We refine it, we pack it, we brand it, we own it. Imagine the cascading impact of this one transaction. Thousands of Burkinabe farmers getting higher prices for their harvest. Hundreds of Ethiopian factory workers gaining stable employment. African logistics companies growing their fleets. African tech companies developing apps for farm-to-factory tracking. Financial institutions expanding intra-African trade credits. This is the engine of continental growth. And let us not be naive. This $20 billion deal sends shockwaves through the old world order. The same forces that colonized Africa, enslaved her children, and looted her resources for centuries have always depended on one thing: our division. They divided our tribes. They divided our languages. They divided our currencies. They even divided our trade routes. But what happens when the landlocked nation of Burkina Faso and the rising economic lion of Ethiopia unite in strategic commerce? What happens when no Western middleman takes a cut? What happens when African ports, African trucks, and African banks handle the entire transaction? What happens is freedom. Freedom from the chains of import dependency. Freedom from exploitative loan conditions. Freedom from being seen as raw resource suppliers and nothing more. This deal is not isolated. It is part of a broader wave rising across the continent. Burkina Faso, under the revolutionary leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, is building a future not with speeches, but with factories, refineries, roads, and trade corridors that link the Sahel to the Horn. Traoré understands that Pan-Africanism is not just a political ideal, it is an economic necessity. And Ethiopia, under the bold direction of its own leadership, is showing the entire continent what African industrialization can look like, not mimicking the West, but innovating for African realities. When Burkina Faso's cashew producers found themselves trapped in low-price cycles dictated by foreign buyers, they turned to their African brothers and sisters. And when Ethiopia realized it could source high-quality cashews from Africa instead of Asia, it acted. And the result? A $20 billion vote of confidence in African capability. Let us put that into perspective. $20 billion is more than many African countries' annual budgets. It is enough to build hospitals, fund schools, invest in innovation hubs, and create 1 million jobs. And it came not from foreign aid, not from debt, but from cooperative trade. And let me be clear, this is only the beginning. Already, other African nations are watching. Ghana is eyeing cocoa processing deals with Nigeria. Zambia and Kenya are discussing cross-border textile production. Algeria and Senegal are negotiating joint solar panel assembly plants. The spirit of Ujamaa, of Kwame Nkrumah's vision, of Thomas Sankara's legacy, is rising again, not in dreams, but in documents, in trade routes, and in factories. But this spirit must be protected, because the enemies of African unity are not asleep. They know that if Africa trades with itself, it will no longer need their overpriced goods. If Africa processes its own raw materials, their factories will slow down. If Africa stands together, their control ends. So expect the resistance. They will use the media to mock us. They will use the IMF to warn us. They will use economic sabotage, political bribery, and even unrest to destabilize what we are building. But we must hold the line. We must strengthen the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA. We must protect and expand African banks, African shipping lines, African currencies. We must build railways that go from Lagos to Addis, ports that serve African cargo first, and digital platforms that bypass Western surveillance. We must believe, deeply and unapologetically, that our soil is enough, our people are enough, and our future belongs to us. Today, Burkina Faso and Ethiopia didn't just exchange goods. They exchanged trust. They exchanged dignity. They exchanged a message to every African child that you do not have to go to Europe to find success. You can build it right here, on your own continent. This deal teaches our children that cashews are not just a nut. They are an empire waiting to rise. That every tree planted in Burkina Faso is an act of sovereignty. That every worker in an Ethiopian factory is a soldier in the war against poverty. That every African leader who chooses unity over division is a hero of the Pan-African dream. So to every president, every minister, every mayor, every farmer, every entrepreneur listening today, the road has been cleared. Now is the time to step forward. Make local trade your default. Make African collaboration your first option. Make African excellence your daily mission. Because the world is watching. And this time, we are not just demanding respect, we are commanding it. Africa has what the world needs. But now, for the first time in centuries, Africa is learning that it has what Africa needs. Burkina Faso sends $20 billion worth of cashews to Ethiopia, and the world will never see us the same again. Africa unites. Africa rises. And we are just getting started. Long live Pan-Africanism. Long live economic freedom. Long live the brotherhood of Burkina Faso and Ethiopia. Let the harvest of unity begin.
As reactions continue to pour in from across the continent, one thing is clear. Africa is demanding respect, sovereignty, and accountability. Was this just a diplomatic misstep or a deeper sign of shifting global alliances? We'll be watching closely. If you found this story important, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real, unfiltered African news. This is Talk of Africa 360, telling the stories that matter.